Hi Rose, how are you?
I'm good, Greg. How are you?
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this interview with me. Uh,
Yes.
One of my goals, which I may have mentioned to you when we've spoken or through email with my business Be Who You Want to Be, is to find some of the top visionaries that I can from around the world to share their inspired mission with the community that I'm building. So after attending the top 10 event several weeks ago, where I saw you speak, where I heard your story, I was just compelled to share your message. So with that being said, I have a few questions that I'd love to ask you.
Sure.
Okay. So my first question to you, just to give viewers who are watching this at the moment, just to give them a little bit of an idea of who you are, can you share a little bit about yourself and your background?
Sure. I'm right now basically a food expert, nutritionist, media person, and it's really on the bandwagon to get people to start eating healthier, to get Canadians to start eating healthier, because I think we're plagued with what we now call obesity. We have an obesity epidemic, diabetes type 2, heart and stroke increases, and increased cancer. And I think part of it is due to the fat and the toxins that the fat releases. So I've been on the bandwagon now for about 15 years, 20 years, writing cookbooks, having a cooking school, launching a catering company, doing media across the country, frozen and fresh food programs right to people's doors, anything to get people to understand that eating well is great. It's not about deprivation. It's all about living better and feeling better.
Hmm. Cool. That sounds fantastic. I mean, that's part of what kind of got me interested, purely because I have a little bit of a background in health and wellness.
Hmm.
But I'll get to that in a little bit.
Sure.
Um, my next question to you is, with all the years that you've been working, doing what you're doing, what inspires you I guess, to continue doing what you love with your life?
Well, I've seen that I've been able to change my own genetic path. So my family was plagued with obesity and diabetes type 2. I lost my father from a massive coronary in his 50s. His sister, my aunt, in her 50s, to massive coronary. My grandmother died at 52. I never met her from complications of diabetes type 2. So in my early 30s, I discovered I had high cholesterol. And I was a runner, so I always say don't judge a book by its cover. I was running 5 miles a day. I was slim. But I was clogging my arteries because I was a closet eater. I loved high-fat foods. I loved lots of sweets. And, I mean, nothing was made without butter, cream, cheese, and eggs. And I thought as long as I was slim, that whole thing, I'm thin, why should I worry about it? When my doctor discovered my cholesterol, he said, look at your family history. You're in your 30s. I don't know if you'll live into your 50s. That shook me up. And it was that day that I literally started to look into what constituted really healthy living, not just salads. How could I even have desserts and enjoy my life and stay healthy? And that's really what motivated me.
Fantastic. And what continues to inspire you now? What drives you now?
What drives me now is watching people succeed. So having a restaurant, having catering, having people email me and say, you know what, I've never felt better. I never realized you could eat like this. Having an entire restaurant where we seat 300 people, where it's just a delicious, healthy, fresh, seasonal menu, succeeds in a country like Canada.
Hmm.
And it shows you that people want this and you can do it. And it's not about, as I said, deprivation. And also watch my own family of 4 children. They all had weight issues when they were younger. And now watching them all work out, eat well. So I really am the role model. And I think as a parent, it's a lot harder to be yelling and screaming at, your family to get out and go play basketball and eat healthy if you're sitting on the couch smoking a cigarette, having a few beers, and eating nachos. So really being a role model, you have to walk the walk and talk the talk.
Of course, no, I totally agree with that. So, I mean, that's great that you just mentioned that, because that's one of the things that I really talk about in terms of what I do with kids and with parents. Is that ultimately when we want to inspire kids to do things, we really want to be leading by example, because they tend to mimic what we do. So
Right.
it's wonderful to kind of hear you mention that. Now, one of the main reasons that I wanted to chat to you was I was truly inspired by your talk at the Top 10 event and the advice that you gave, and the little tips that you shared with everybody in the audience about how to live a life of purpose and
Hmm.
inspiration. So what I'd love to ask you is if you can actually briefly share some of that with the viewers so they can have the same experience, I guess, that I had.
I mean, there's lots of tips, and you don't want readers and listeners to get bored by what you say. So I really summed it up, and I think everybody can relate to it. So tip number one is really get one thing right in your life. And that means something like in terms of eating. Let's just say you wake up one day, and I've seen this, and it's happened to me, where my daughter was on a diet for health reasons, and she said, I have to cut out all the sugar and all the white flour. So I was with her for a weekend, and I cut out the sugar. I went, well, that's easy. And then I kept trying to do it. It was too extreme. And that's what people do. They wake up and they say, okay, I've got to lose weight. I've got to get healthier. So they right away say, I'm going to ban all the carbs, all the sugar, get one thing right. So when I realized I failed after 3 days, I then said, you know what, I'm going to lessen the sugar in my day. And that's what I've started to do. So get one thing right, and don't go for the full home run, because you won't get it. Get one thing right. So that means at night you go to bed and you love to sit down to a bowl of chips. Could you have like a half a cup instead of a bowl? That's getting one thing right. And if you keep repeating that, you feel you're successful. And that's the most important thing, because once you feel failure, you just throw in the towel and repeat yourself, which is not a good thing. The next thing is stop blaming your genetics. So, I mean, it's easy for me to say, well, my dad had heart disease and he died in his 50s, and my grandmother died diabetes. I'm heavy and there's no way I can get around this. 25% of your health is related to your genes. 75% is something you can do something about. So again, that's empowering. I really believe in empowerment, that you don't just, with your arms out going, I can't help myself. You can help yourself. There's no guarantees in life, but you can absolutely try to change that genetic path of your life, which I think is very important for people to know. The other one is have passion. So I think, especially when you speak to children, at times kids don't know what they love. When they get to university, they are always doing a catch-22 and saying, well, what do I want to become? I don't know what I like. And if I don't like anything, maybe I won't become anything. So the key is finding out what you like. And not to say that you want to become a rock star, you're going to become a rock star. I mean, I used to love acting. It didn't mean I was going to be on Broadway, but I found by way of taking my acting ability, I could apply it to what I do today, which is speaking to people, being on television and radio. So find what your passion is and try to work with that. And don't say, okay, because it's this passion, I have to do all or nothing. Work it into whatever career you have. The other one is the harder you work, the luckier you get. And it's very true. It's people always say, you're so lucky, Greg. Wow, look what you're doing. Isn't that incredible? And I know it's just taking hard work. Even these young idols that, are like the Biebers of the world, the kid started when he was 2 years old. I remember playing drums and all that. So he may not have known he was working hard, but you don't get lucky unless you work hard. And I do believe, does it always pay off? Maybe not. But anybody who's been really successful will always say they worked very hard.
Absolutely.
And to always be prepared and never take anything for granted. And every day I get up is a new day. I just did an interview for 680 News on health, and I had to research everything. And before I got on the phone to actually take that call, I made sure I did everything right. And I've done this 100 times. But you don't want to get caught with not having your facts right. And then 5, the recipe in life is balance. So for me, 4 children, I got a great husband, I got 2 dogs, 2 cats, and my work. And really it is trying not to put all your eggs in one basket, meaning if my work was the only thing important to me, I'd be neglecting my children. Mm-hmm. If I only have my children and nothing else in my life, then there's going to be something very empty. So that's a tough one, getting your life in balance. And I think that's the toughest thing for most people. But you know when you have it, because the anxiety is gone, you just feel good, you feel relaxed, you can go to work hard, take all the issues with your children, and you're able to handle it. That to me is balance. Mm-hmm. And those are the 5 top tips.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing those.
Thank you.
I mean, they for me personally, I could relate to pretty much all of those from a health and wellness point of view, but also from a personal journey perspective. Especially the one that you mentioned about working hard. There are a lot of people in the world that have this fantasy that going to do something they truly love is just going to happen overnight, and it's
right.
It doesn't.
Right. They look at the Madonnas of the world used to say, if you don't want it bad enough, you can't have it. And you think when these people get up there and they get on stage, you just think, boy, they're so lucky. They've got a nice voice and they're able to do that. It's so much really sweat and tears. It really is. And yet, once you really love what you're doing and you understand how to work hard, you no longer think about it, Greg, as working hard. It's just what you do.
Absolutely.
So I'll wake up at 4:30 in the morning and people think I'm out of my mind, but it's normal for me.
Mm-hmm.
I just start working. I like what I'm doing. And when you like what you're doing, the passion comes. And when the passion comes, the work gets good. And it really is that what I call that domino effect of getting one thing right.
Absolutely. Well, that's awesome. Now, I've mentioned already, I have a background in health and wellness. I started my career as a chiropractor, so I have a specific interest in sharing this knowledge from that point of view. So my question is, what do you believe is the most important nutritional or health and wellness advice you could give to parents that could help their children thrive?
You really want to make sure that they're eating nutritiously, meaning, let it be the Mediterranean food guide, Canada's food guide. You want to introduce them to new foods. You want them to stay away. I mean, all the manufacturers and food manufacturers would shoot me now. Stay away from packaged, processed, canned food. And as I say, will this world exist without it? You really can. I find that, I really believe today, Greg, that disease and all the illness and immune systems, which are just, there's so many autoimmune diseases like celiac, cancer is an autoimmune disease. These things are being caused by our environment, I believe. And the only thing we can control is what we put into our bodies in terms of food. Mm-hmm. And if I can get people to stay away from packaged, processed, canned foods, even fast foods, because these foods are so modified to last for years on the shelf, that doesn't sit right with me. Mm-hmm. So if I could get parents to, rather than getting those, restaurants where you drive through and get breakfast, get a piece of whole grain bread, some peanut butter, almond butter, and a banana. That's wholesome. That's good. And that doesn't take a half hour to prepare in the morning. That's the key thing. Get away from the processed packaged foods.
Great. Thank you. Now, there might be some children or teens that are watching this. Some of them tend to log in and watch these videos. So what's the best advice you can actually give them about pursuing their dreams? Not necessarily around health, but around achieving what they want.
Well, again, it's to any child. Parents always start their kids on piano playing or violin, or they get on the hockey team and they expect them to be in the NHL. The key thing is get your kid, and a kid should know, do what you like to do. So if it's hockey, if it's ballet, if it's whatever it is, but find something. I always say to my kids, I don't care what you do, but find one thing outside of school that you like to pursue. So I force them to find one skill, and then just be with it for a year, for 2 years. And if you really don't like it, I understand. But if you do like it, like hockey, like kids, everybody wants to be on the NHL. But if a kid really likes hockey, he's going to play 3-4 times a week. He's going to do it, get up early in the morning. That's no excuse not to, but that's how much he has to want it, if that's what he wants in the end. So for a child to really look at themselves and say, what do I really like to do? And the hardest thing, Greg, is at times for kids who don't know. Mm-hmm. Or sometimes they feel they're not good at things. What can they do? But everybody has something that they really love. And that's where they have to pursue that. But they also have to be realistic. So if a kid's really a lousy hockey player and they want to get in the NHL, somewhere along the line the parent has to sit down with them. Right. And I think it's great you're pursuing this. But, let's take a look at who else is on the team or what else we can do. And that's a tough one. That's a hard thing.
Of course. Just a quick question. Did you have any challenges with your kids when they, in terms of maybe them not really knowing what to do and where to go?
I could talk till tomorrow with that, absolutely. I mean, I always wish I had the 4 kids that just woke up and said, this is what I want to do, Mom, and today we're doing it. Not any of them. I mean, perhaps 1 out of my 4, my firstborn, Natalie, she was a very focused, directed kid from day one. She didn't know what she wanted to do, but I loved it. She just worked hard. She just said, I'm not sure where I'm going in life, but I've got to work hard, and today I really enjoy doing this, and next year maybe I'll do that. And I'd say the other 3 struggled more. My son, third-year university, said, I don't know what I want to do with my life. And it worried me, but I said, you'll find something. Sure enough, after he graduated, he took off 8 months and traveled, through, the developing countries, and he came back a different person. So sometimes a kid needs something like that. Mm-hmm. My other daughter, my 3rd child, also just didn't do that well in school, didn't know what she wanted, and it took her a couple of years of taking off school to really find her passion with autistic children.
Wow. And
today she's pursuing a master's in New York, as she's going to be leaving shortly for that. And I never would have guessed 5 years ago that's what she would be pursuing.
Amazing.
So to get every kid their time, and sometimes as parents, we want too much of what we want for our kids. Mm-hmm. We want our children to become this or to do that. And they might try to go along with it, but I think you're really crushing a child's creativeness by doing that.
Great. Well, thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you.
And thank you again for taking all this time I know you're a very busy lady, so thank you for taking the time to answer these questions of mine and for really giving our viewers a chance to meet you. I really wanted them to see who you are. I love what you're dedicated to. It very much connects to parts of my history and parts of my value system, and I'm grateful to have had this opportunity to share your inspired mission with the Be Who You Want to Be community. So thank you, Rose.
Thank you, Greg. It was a pleasure. It's always lovely to talk about this.
Awesome. Thank you.
Take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.